now like decides what a user is able to do when they have access to the network or a system. And then accounting looks at what the user has done when they had access to a particular resource and all those things. So it's just basically a monitoring system. Accounting is a monitoring system to see what the user has done, to make sure the user is doing the right thing when they are on the network. And also accounting is also used to flag any suspicious activity and all that. Then we have authentication factors. Authentication factors, there are about 5 of them, the main ones, that is. And one of them is something you know, which is, for example, a password or a PIN. And one thing about something you know is a username is not, your username is not an authentication factor, because that's something that is easily accessible. So we cannot say that a username is an authentication factor under the something you know category. So under something you know, we have passwords, PIN numbers, and all those other things. Then something you have is like a smart card, for example, or a USB token. Like when you access a building using a smart card, that falls under something you know. And then something you have is something you are. Something you are is things like your fingerprint. Something you are deals with biological features. You know, your fingerprint, the retina of your eye, facial recognition. All those things fall under the something you are category. And then somewhere you are is your location. I'm sure you guys have come across those memes about how Google reacts when you log into your Google account at a place that you don't normally log in. Then they come, harassing you, telling you, is this you? You've seen those memes. So somewhere you are is you're authenticated based on where you are trying to access a system from. And then something you do is like, for example, when you unlock your phone with a pattern, that's something you do. And it's not a very commonly used authentication factor in terms of enterprise, but yeah, it is that falls under something you do. And then when it comes to authentication factors, there's multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication is when you use more than one authentication factor. Can someone give us an example of a multi-factor authentication based on this? For example, when you use a PIN and a password, is that multi-factor or not? That's not a rhetorical question.
It is multi-factor, just like, for example, Apple ID.
Sorry?
I said, I think it is, and an example would be Apple ID, because you put in your password and then they phone you or they text your PIN. Isn't that multi-factor?
Yeah, that's not what I'm asking. It's not the same thing as what I'm asking. I'm saying like, what you're saying is you use a password and a one-time password, and that OTP. I'm not talking about an OTP. I'm talking about whereby like you have your phone and then you have set your phone to be unlocking using a password and a PIN. Not getting a text message. So is that multi-factor or not?
think it is.
Okay. Another example is when you use facial recognition and a fingerprint. Is that multi-factor or not? You've set up your phone to unlock using both fingerprint and facial recognition. Is that multi-factor?
Stefan, the participants can't unmute to respond at this moment.
Or they can't?
Yes, that's why you're not getting a response. Sorry, I didn't inform you. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay, let me check the chat.
Yes, please.
So, okay, so I see some Ian is saying both would be something you do, something you know. So it is not multi-factor for the first question. And someone else is saying it is a multi-factor. Another person is saying it's not. Okay. So the thing is, if you use a PIN and a password, that's not multi-factor because, like Ian has said, both of those fall under something you know. So that is not multi-factor. When you use your fingerprint and then you use facial recognition together to unlock your phone, for example, that also that one is not multi-factor because all those are something you are. So for something to for authentication to be considered multi-factor, you have to use two authentication factors. For example, you use a password and your fingerprint. So when you use the password and your fingerprint, that's multi-factor. When you use maybe a password and a pattern, that's also multi-factor. So make sure you get multi-factor authentication straight. Just because you using two things that fall under the same factor is not multi-factor. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing I'll talk about is single sign-on. Single sign-on refers to the ability of a user to log on or access multiple systems by providing credentials once. So SSO increases security because the user only needs to remember one set of credentials and is less likely to write them down. It is also more convenient for users to access network resources if they only have to log on one time. Yeah, because convenience is also a very important factor in cybersecurity, because if a system is too secure and it compromises the convenience, then it is not best for a system to be more secure and less convenient. A proper security system will promote both convenience and security. So the point about convenience is important, but then also what is one risk that can be associated with single sign-on? You can drop a text there. One huge risk that can be associated with single sign-on is that, if an attacker is able to compromise the user's credentials, the attacker will be able to access all those systems that the user is able to access with the single sign-on. So single sign-on is risky from that perspective. And then so there's federation. Federation is like single sign-on, but this is about two different companies being able to use the same systems while being on different locations, for example. So like maybe, and this can also work for a company that has different branches. They can be able to use the same systems. I can be authenticated at this branch and be able to access systems in another branch. So that is what federation is about. It's more like single sign-on, but at an advanced level. Yep. So the principle of least privilege is very important for identity and access management. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. Least privilege is about making sure that a user only has privileges that they need to perform their tasks and functions and nothing more. So when a user has more privileges than they require, that is a security threat. So the user should only be having privileges that they need, not more than what they need. That's the principle of least privilege. Very important. Yeah. Then password policies. I decided just to pick the password policies that should not be used because I didn't want to make this a very long session. So just to point out some of these policies, for example, password expiration has been deprecated as a best practice in cybersecurity. So a while back, it used to, administrators used to configure password to expire after 90 days, that to encourage users to change their passwords. But that practice has been deprecated. It is no longer considered a best practice because it encourages users to recycle passwords and just change one letter or change one number, and then at the end of the day, it does not provide any security. So password expiration policies are no longer considered a best practice in cybersecurity. And then password hints like maybe security questions like, for example, what is your favorite pet, your first primary school, or things like those, have also been discouraged because now we live in an era of social engineering and social media and OSINT. So most of these security questions an attacker can get answers to these security questions by just going online to your Facebook page or Instagram. So it is not recommended for you to use security questions as a mode of recovering passwords, because a lot of this personal information can be gathered through social media within seconds. And then we have access control models. In terms of access control models, we have role-based. The role-based access control model is the most popular, whereby in an organization, employees given access to systems depending on their department, or depending on the particular role they have in the organization. So for example, there is an administrator will configure a group for admins, and then anybody who falls under that category of administrators will be added to that group. And also maybe the admin will also configure a group for the marketing department, and the people who are in marketing will be added to that group, and the privileges they need will be configured. And for the admin group, the privileges needed by administrators will be configured for that administrator group. So that way it is easier to manage the privileges. If somebody has moved from maybe one department to another, they are just removed from that group and added to the other group. And the other thing about people moving departments in an organization, if the security administrator is not doing their work, it will cause a situation called privilege creep. And privilege creep is whereby somebody was in marketing and he was in the marketing group, and he had the privileges of the marketing group, and then that person moves to sales. And now after moving to sales, the person needs the privileges for the sales group. So yeah, he's added to that sales group. But then the administrator does not remove that person from the marketing group where he left, and that becomes a security risk, and it is called privilege creep. So when a person moves within the organization from one department to another, the person's privileges for the previous department should be revoked, and the person be granted now privileges for the new role that they are working on. So that's important also to note. Rule-based access control is basically mostly used by firewalls and routers. Firewalls and routers give access to services and people using access control lists. So they look at their list and say, this person is allowed, this one is not allowed. So that's what is meant by rule-based. It is mostly used by routers and firewalls. Then discretionary access control is whereby you have a file or a resource in a computer that has an owner. It is this mostly for Windows and Linux. A lot of files and resources have an owner. So the owner is the one who decides who can access that resource and who can do what. So that's the discretionary access control. It is mostly used for a standalone workstation or your own computer. You can give access to people who you want and all those things. And then mandatory access control is mostly used by the military. This one is used for high security places like the military and all those. So mandatory access control is they have labels. They use labels whereby you get a label like there's the top secret, there's secret, there's confidential, and then there's like private. Then so each resource is labeled, and then each user is assigned a label. Each resource is labeled, and then users are given clearances. Yeah. So if you have a top secret clearance, you can access top secret information. When you have confidential level clearance, you can access the confidential level resources and all that. But also when it comes to mandatory access control, there's the principle of need to know. So this basically means that just because you have top secret clearance, it doesn't mean you're going to access everything in the top secret clearance. The need to know principle says that if you have top secret clearance, you will be allowed to access any top secret clearance information that you need to access, not everything, only what you need to access. So the mandatory access control system is very strict, and it is used for top security places like the military and all that. Then attribute-based access control is uses a combination of attributes to grant access. It will look at the IP address, look at the for example, if you are trying to access a system, the attribute-based access control will look at the IP address of your system, the environment of your system, where you're trying to access the system from, and they'll also look at the system you're trying to access, what the condition of the system, and all those things. So attribute-based access control will consider several things before it can grant you access. So that's the difference between all those types of control models. I hope you guys have followed that one. And then, wait, the presentation is over. Let me check. Okay, there is the last slide here is about privilege. Privilege management. Yeah, the last slide is about privilege management. This is a very important slide because it can help a lot when it comes to protecting your network against insider threats. A lot of times, a lot of cybersecurity systems are focused on protecting against outsider threats, but also the company has to put in systems to protect against insider threats. So one way of protecting against insider threats is separation of duties. And an example of separation of duties in outside here is, for example, when you hear someone saying that my salary has not either talk about it because there's one signature missing. That's one of the controls used in accounting to prevent fraud. So like for a check to be issued, it has to be signed by at least 2 people. So that, and with that, it means that one person cannot just wake up and sign checks for themselves and then go and withdraw money. So separation of duties is very important when it comes to protecting security systems as well. So it's like you can make sure that if maybe accessing a critical server, if it needs multi-factor authentication, one admin will have the password, and then the other admin will have access to the code. So for that system to be accessed, it will need two people. So that's the thing about separation of duties. And then mandatory vacations and job rotations are critical in preventing fraud and embezzlements. So for example, if I am working for this organization and I've been colluding with outsiders, I'm trying to steal some money, and I'm in the process of doing that. If I'm sent on a mandatory vacation and someone else takes my position, they will notice some suspicious activity in my communications, in whatever I've been doing, and then they will report. So the thing about separation of duties and mandatory vacation is, mandatory vacations and job rotations are meant to identify fraud or to protect the organization from insiders who might be trying to do some malicious activities. Yeah, so that's the end of the presentation. It's been short, and that's how I planned it to be. So yeah, that's the end of the slides presentation. So let me see, what are people saying in the chat? Oh yeah, so I think that someone was answering the question about single sign-on. Yeah, that's correct. A user, if a hacker is able to access the single sign-on, whatever, he'll be able to access a lot of systems. Yes. So yeah, I don't know, should you have questions or should we move to the demo? The demo is a bit, it's quite short, I guess, but so sure. Am I running out of time?
Hi, Stefan. We have around 15 minutes, but if there are no questions, maybe you can just move to the demo part.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys can ask any questions you have, because this lab will load for like a minute or two. What? I'm not sure I understand that question, David. What can we classify an access directory as? Access directory? I'm not sure what you mean by that. You mean Active Directory or Access Directory? I mean, okay, an active directory is just a logical control used to manage the users. So like you create accounts, create users, you audit them. And so active directory is just used for, creating you create group policies and all those. So it's used for managing the people and the accounts, the network. If you're talking about controls, it's a logical control. Yeah. Just used to manage the people and the account and everybody. And also it is used for provisioning accounts, deprovisioning the accounts, and disabling the accounts. So it's just for management, basically. My lab is up. I don't know.
You haven't shared your screen.
Yes, let me share. See it?
Yes. Well, I'm
Okay.
seeing a clock and other things.
Yeah, that's what you should be saying.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So, okay. So this is this is CompTIA's lab environment. He said this that are we clear?
No, you are breaking. Could you please repeat that again?
All right. But you can see the screen, right?
Yes.
As like we agreed this part should not be recorded because of CompTIA's copyrights. Copyright, yes, that's what we said. So I was asking if it's being recorded. Anyway, okay. Okay, so we need to log into this all right. So this okay, let me go back. Let me go back. So for this for demo, you're going to accounts using an improperly configured script, and then we will rectify the misconfigurations that have been made by the script. Okay, so the 515 support 515 support is this network. Okay, it's being in the process of being audited and comply with the audit process. To comply with the audit process, it is necessary to create temporary user and computer accounts for the audit staff. So each account exists as an object in the company's Active Directory domain where they are given certain attributes and permissions according to the requirements